A rivalry and competition. It's a double-edged sword. It can be toxic and unpleasant, but it can be also a source of encouragement for competitors to do better. It can even just be a fun thing between friends. And as you know from the title of this video, rivalries can often form between two major cities in a country. Doing some quick research, here are some city pairs that seem to have a strong sense of rivalry. Madrid, Barcelona, Tokyo, Osaka, Rome, Milan, and Sydney, Melbourne. And so in Lithuania, the best known rivalry is between Kaunas and Vilnius.
Come on. Feel that?
Emily George.
All right. Yeah. Nice to meet you.
Daryl Stokes.
Come on. What's up, fam? How you doing?
On one side, you have the country's largest city and administrative capital, and arguably the city that most people know about, if they know much about Lithuania at all. And then on the other side is the temporary interwar capital and the second largest city. It's also home to the Žalgiris basketball team, and one Reddit user describes them as having the deepest traditions, strongest team, most famous coaches and players, with the biggest budget, biggest arena, and biggest fan base. And so in a country that is crazy about basketball, this Kaunas team is the one that everyone has its eyes on. That's my understanding of the situation based on my research and as a foreigner who has only lived here for a few years. But how would a local Lithuanian describe this rivalry? To answer this question, I turn to Yeva from Vilnius with Locals Tours. Here's what she had to say about it.
Yeah, so the first time I was approached with this question, it was actually immediately lots of fun jokes in my mind, lots of stereotypes, especially about Kaunas, of course. But I thought for a second that I did not know the reason why any of these jokes came to be, and when it actually started. For me personally, it was as if I've always known these jokes. Some memes started resurfacing in my mind, from 2010 something. I was like, oh, I should Google that. Of course, turned to Reddit immediately. And what surprised me the most was actually the first topic, the first room I entered. There were lots of questions by the locals, just like me, when did it start? Why did Kaunas hate Vilnius so much? Why Vilnius hates Kaunas so much? Can anyone explain to me? And there were hundreds of comments like this, and I realized that we are constantly making these jokes without realizing what was the root of it all. And then there were some weird explanations trying to explain, saying that it was because of Soviet times, some saying that it was because of historical reasons, some saying that because people in Vilnius and Kaunas have very different characters and different ideas what the city, what Lithuania should be, and that is why. Of course, there were questions about basketball in there too, which is the most important, of course. There were lots of versions, but nothing that would convince me 100% that this is the real reason why Vilnius and Kaunas was against each other.
And yeah, Yeva's research shows that the rivalry between Kaunas and Vilnius has some deep roots. An article from the newspaper and website Kauno Diena discusses how a rivalry came to be in the first place. Historian Norbertas Černiauskas says that due to the events of the 20th century, Vilnius was unknown, romanticized and foreign to Lithuanians for a long time. The city became the capital of modern Lithuania and the center of political and social power only in 1988 through 1991. Černiauskas says that, until then, for many Lithuanians, it was just an ancient and romanticized capital, but seized by the Poles, and then simply the administrative center of Soviet Lithuania, and then a historical city of Lithuania inhabited by Poles and Russians. Okay, pausing here, I recognize that this might be a sensitive subject, or even something that will be intensely up for debate among Lithuanians, and so I'm just going to show the original Lithuanian source text here. Černiauskas adds that back then, the identity of Kaunas was related to Lithuanianness, and the city was famous for its anti-Soviet atmosphere. But after regaining independence and Vilnius becoming the central city, Kaunas failed to adapt to changes and discover a new identity for itself. But a lecturer at the Faculty of History of Vilnius University says that current processes show that artificial antagonism remains less and less, and Kaunas has been seriously rethinking and revealing its unique identity and place as a city. Nonetheless, the rivalry, whether organic or artificial, has resulted in some pretty humorous jokes and stereotypes. Well, humorous to me and many others, at least. Yeva found these for me, and she warns that all of these little jabs found on the website demotivacijos.lt came from internet posts from the 2010s, and, well, they aren't very politically correct. And so here are a few examples. Let's start with the jabs against Kaunas. People will joke that Kaunas is not actually a city, saying, "I've heard that Kaunas is set to be demolished to build an actual city." Kaunas is a gas station between Vilnius and Klaipėda. Kaunas is a kebab shop before Klaipėda. The only good thing in Kaunas is a ticket to Vilnius. And then for a long time, people from Kaunas wore tracksuits. And, unrelated to this image, the city was also known for organized crime, though maybe some gangsters wore tracksuits too. For many years, Kaunas was struggling with its infrastructure, and it was a running joke that Kaunas streets had more potholes than actual streets. And there's many memes about this. And because Kaunas was neglected for many years, one marketing company even created social commercials stating that you can live in Kaunas too. Okay, and as for the pro-Kaunas talking points, here are a few that have circulated the internet. Kaunas is said to be the true Lithuanian identity, as it was a capital during the interwar period, with many important national traditions, ideals, institutions being created there. During Soviet times, many of those traditions and ideals were kept alive in Kaunas by locals, along with a strong anti-Soviet sentiment. Some say that people in Kaunas are less pretentious, and in the last few years, Kaunas has been finishing many big projects, and apparently this achievement is even a sour subject to many Vilnius residents. Kaunas got a new bus station, a new football stadium, a new basketball arena, and even a new zoo. Because of this reason, many people in Kaunas really like their mayor, so much so that they're willing to ignore his businesses in Russia and corruption scandals. Here are a few highlights from an old Kaunas tourism video that puts it against its big brother Vilnius. I won't show the whole 98-second advert, but here are my favorite bits.
My name is Kaunas. I have a brother called Vilnius, who is trying to solve our sister Riga's problems. As a younger brother in the family, I like to steal some cool things from the older one. So this summer, I have already stolen more than 3,000 flights. And this is how Vilnius looks after it. My brother Vilnius is fantastic, but I'm Kaunastic. It can't be described in words. You must feel it. You must repeat it. So come in and don't think about any problems. Go Kaunas this summer and then try to reach Vilnius.
On the more controversial and inflammatory side, some have been boastful about the fact that there are no Russian or Polish people there. Those with conservative values will say that Kaunas is more traditional, with the local municipality even trying to ban pride parades. And then, what about jabs against Vilnius? Well, I couldn't find as many compared to Kaunas, and so maybe this just means that Vilnius residents are meaner. Anyways, let's see what we have. The biggest point that people will raise about Vilnius is that it's not real Lithuania, and that Vilnius is sometimes referred to as Portugal. I'm not exactly sure why Portugal, but maybe because it's just a really far away place in Europe. Vilnius may also be referred to as being essentially a Polish city. It had a large Polish population in the past and was part of Poland for some time. So this meme, which puts Vilnius against Poland, has the caption, "Whoever wins, half the people in Vilnius will still be happy." And if Kaunas is less pretentious, then Vilnius is the one that is more pretentious, with residents of Vilnius being accused of thinking too highly of themselves. Basically, hipsters at their worst. Even though most Vilniečiai are not born in Vilnius, having moved there for studies, there's a magical transformation when you move from your little town and become a cosmopolitan hipster. And then of course if one denies it, one is still a pretentious hipster. But on the pro-Vilnius side, many will argue that it's simply more attractive to many immigrants, with many more different languages, cultures, and global trends mixing. So it's more cosmopolitan and Western, and even more cultured, according to people from Vilnius. Vilnius is also LGBTQ friendly, and it's even the official position from the municipality, which even allows for a rainbow crosswalk and lights up the town hall building in rainbow lights on the International Day Against Homophobia. Jokes and talking points aside, there are a few ways that Kauniečiai and Vilniečiai compete with one another. Basketball is, of course, a big one. The two cities have teams that are among the best in the league, although even a Lithuanian colleague of mine admits that Kaunas' team, Žalgiris, is objectively better. That same colleague, however, says that subjectively, Vilnius' Rytas team is more entertaining because their atmosphere there is crazy good Well, in his words, Žalgiris is a bit of a snooze fest. Can you tell that he grew up in Vilnius? Still, there are just so many jokes against Vilnius's Rytas, as you can see here. Comparing Christmas trees each year is another point of rivalry. While different tree designs pop up all over Lithuania, people always have to compare the trees from Vilnius and Kaunas to see whose was better. As Yeva reminds me, the Kaunas versus Vilnius rivalry friendship is used by both cities to attract tourism, international investments, and more. And, even for the last 5 or 6 years, both cities have been surprising each other with birthday gifts. We've seen free trips, custom socks, a special song on vinyl, a giant cake, chocolates, and flowers. Yep, the two cities have exchanged some rather interesting gifts over the past few years, no doubt sparking surprise and delight among all the people that get to enjoy such gifts. So yeah, hopefully this gives you a complete picture of the rivalry and friendship between Lithuania's two largest cities.
I think you asked me which city I like the most. I'm not going to answer that. No, I'm not going to answer that question for sure.
Personally, there are a few more things I like about Vilnius, including a more compact city center, an airport with more destinations, and a few more easily accessible viewpoints. I'm sure if I lived in Kaunas, I would have more things to appreciate, but I have to say that the best part of the city for me is Laisvės alėja. It's just such a lovely, beautiful pedestrian area, and the giant church at the end of it makes the area all the more beautiful to me. Well, in conclusion, some jokes and jabs may be inflammatory, but I think the friendship between the two cities, strengthened in recent years with annual gifts, is more representative of the current relations between Kaunas and Vilnius. But still, some of these jokes are pretty funny. So what about you? What do you think of the rivalry between Kaunas and Vilnius? And which city do you like better? Let us know by leaving a comment. My special thanks to Yeva again for her massive help on this video. Her and her team of tour guides are incredibly knowledgeable on all things to do with Vilnius and its history. Whether you're a tourist or a longtime local, I think it's a great idea to join in on a walking tour to learn new things about the city. Regular walking tours happen quite often, and there's also specialty tours like a Soviet-focused tour and a Jewish-focused tour, and I believe there's even new tours coming up in the future. I personally tend to join them when my friends and family are visiting from out of town, and I usually learn something new every time. So check out vilniustourswithlocals.com to see specific times and locations. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.
1939, 23rd of August, Ribbentrop and Molotov, the foreign secretaries of Soviet Union and Nazi Germany, met to sign this non-aggression agreement, which basically meant that they were already dividing Europe into their spheres, right? So in this decision it was made that Lithuania